What if I told you that during the next real financial crisis in the United States, the government won't come for everyone, it will come for specific assets first? Not because they hate you, not because of conspiracy theories, but because history, law, and incentives make those assets the easiest, fastest, and most profitable targets. If you think crises are about stock crashes or bank failures, you're already missing the real story. Crises are about control, and control always starts with assets that are visible, centralized, and politically easy to justify. Today, I'll show you 5 assets that are most likely to be targeted first when the system is under stress, and why almost nobody is prepared for it. The first asset is bank deposits. Most people assume money in the bank is their money. Legally, it's not. Once your money is deposited, it becomes the bank's liability, not your property. During a crisis, withdrawals are not a right, they're a permission. We've already seen this logic tested through withdrawal limits, emergency banking holidays, and silent liquidity controls. In a severe crisis, authorities don't need to seize your money outright. All they need to do is slow it down. A delay of days becomes weeks. Weeks become temporary measures, and suddenly access to your own cash depends on compliance, documentation, and timing. The scary part isn't losing money, it's realizing that ownership without access is meaningless. And before you say that would never happen in the US, remember this: the US doesn't need new laws for emergencies. Most of them already exist. Now, here's where things get uncomfortable, because the second asset isn't something you store in a vault or a bank. It's retirement accounts. 401ks, IRAs, pension funds, massive pools of long-term capital that are politically framed as protected but economically irresistible during a crisis. These funds are already locked, regulated, and difficult to move. In past crises, governments around the world didn't seize pensions directly. They restructured them, changed rules, forced reallocations, mandatory holdings of government debt. When the state needs cheap financing fast, retirement money becomes the perfect target. You won't see police, you won't see headlines screaming confiscation. You'll see policy updates, default options, and stability measures. And most people won't notice until years later when the returns never came back. If this sounds extreme, ask yourself one question: where else can the government access trillions without immediate backlash? Let's go further, because the third asset is where denial collapses. Real estate, but not in the way people expect. Not primary homes at first. Investment properties, second homes, rental portfolios. Real estate is visible, immovable, and already taxed. During a crisis, governments don't need to take your house. They just increase the cost of keeping it. New taxes, emergency levies, compliance requirements, zoning changes, rent controls that destroy cash flow. The asset stays in your name while becoming economically unusable. This is asset capture without confiscation, and it works because it feels fair. After all, you're told it's temporary, for the greater good.
Here's the hook most people miss. Once an asset can't move, it can be slowly suffocated. Now let's talk about the asset everyone thinks is untouchable: stocks and brokerage accounts. Not because they can't fall, that's obvious, but because of how trading itself can be controlled. In a deep crisis, markets don't stay free. Trading halts, forced liquidations, settlement delays, capital controls on foreign holdings, all legal, all justified as stabilization. If authorities need to stop capital flight, they don't need to seize shares, they just freeze exits. Owning an asset you can't sell during a collapse is functionally the same as not owning it at all. Liquidity is power, and during crises, liquidity is rationed. And now the final asset, the one that creates the most arguments: digital assets and alternative stores of value. Not because they're illegal, but because they're new, traceable, and politically convenient.
In a crisis, governments don't ban them overnight. They regulate access points, exchanges, on-ramps, off-ramps. Reporting rules become emergency rules. What starts as consumer protection becomes financial containment. The goal isn't to eliminate alternatives, it's to make exiting the system expensive, slow, and risky. Here's the real takeaway, and this is critical. Crises are not about chaos, they're about prioritization. Authorities go after assets that are centralized, visible, and easy to justify to the public. They don't need to take everything, they only need to take enough. The mistake most people make is preparing for a market crash instead of preparing for policy risk. Prices recover, rules don't always revert. And by the time the crisis is officially declared over, the financial landscape is already permanently changed. So the question isn't, will a crisis happen? The question is, when it does, which of your assets depend entirely on permission and which don't? Because in the next crisis, survival won't be about how much you own, it will be about what you actually control.